Imagine yourself stepping through the low doorway of an early 19th century farmhouse kitchen at dawn. A gentle glow from a black iron stove mingles with the first pale light filtering in through a small window. Along one wall, wooden crocks await the morning's task, churning butter and rendering lard. Across the worn plank table, quiet tools lie ready: paddles, crocks, spoons, each one steeped in ritual and care. In an age before refrigeration or factory farms, these simple fats sustained families. Butter lent richness to porridge and bread, while lard became the golden foundation for pie crusts and sturdy candles. Yet neither emerged by accident. Each required hands steeped in tradition, muscle memory built over countless mornings, and an economy of zero waste where every drop counted. Over the next half hour, we will slow our pace, matching the steady rise and fall of a churn's paddle, the soft hiss of liquid fat in a hot kettle, and the soothing promise of scooping fresh butter into molds. We'll explore how milk, drawn from early morning milkings, transformed through time and touch into creamy gold. We'll witness families gathering around hearth and barnyard, preserving harvests and nurturing community ties. As you settle into this meditative journey, let your breath synchronize with the churn's rhythm. Feel the warmth of hearth and memory of generations in each tactile step. Listen for the lyricism in everyday work, an elegy to quiet skill, to home, and to the simple alchemy of turning animal fat into sustenance, comfort, and light. Let us begin. Milk and cream. Before any churning begins, the story starts in the pasture and barn. In pre-industrial farms, cows, goats, or sheep were more than livestock. They were lifelines. At dawn, the farmhand or farmwife approached the stable, a kerosene lantern in hand, its glow soft against the pre-dawn blue. The gentle lowing of cattle mixed with the thump of wooden clogs on packed earth. Tethered by halter, the cow stood patiently on a raised milking block. The milker, skilled in quiet strokes, washed her udder with a damp cloth. A small pail, usually wooden or tin, caught the first precious streams. With practiced ease, the milker coaxed each teat, alternating hands in a measured cadence so as not to startle the animal. As the process continued, milk collected almost frothy, pale cream rising to the top. In households with dairy barns separate from kitchens, buckets of fresh milk were carried on yokes or in heavy, two-handled pails, set upon a wagon or carried on shoulders. Back in the kitchen, that same milk was left to stand in cool corners, stone floors, or the root cellar's threshold, allowing cream to rise. Cream skimmed from the surface collected in shallow bowls, its golden layer thick and velvety. Families without formal dairy barns might rely on a small, hand-powered separator, a rotating metal cone that used centrifugal force to spin cream from milk. But the simplest method, gravity, was most common. Every family member knew the importance of patience. Skim early morning before chores. Skim again at midday, then once more at evening milking. Each skim yielded a fresh cupful of cream, stored in earthenware crocks until ready for churning. That initial step, transforming milk into cream, was nothing less than alchemy. Liquid white became a buttery promise, waiting its awakening through the churn. And so, from pasture to kitchen, the journey of fat began. A quiet pilgrimage from barnyard life to hearthside ritual. With cream gathered, attention turned to the churn itself, the heart of the household's buttermaking operation. In most early 19th century homes, churns were handcrafted from local timber. Coopered crocks, bent white oak staves bound by iron hoops, stood tall or squat, sometimes reaching waist height for easy use. One common style was the dash churn, a slender wooden barrel with a central pole called a dash or dasher. The dasher often had a crosspiece of wooden slats at its base, resembling a primitive paddle. Some churns sat on legs with a crank handle affixed to the side, converting circular motion into up and down plunges. Others required two hands, steady turning of a horizontal wooden handle to spin an agitator inside. Imagine the kitchen floor, wide planks, grooved by years of foot traffic. The churn steadied upon a woven straw mat to prevent slippage. Nearby, a cast iron weight or heavy stone sat ready to press on top of butter once formed, expelling buttermilk. Thick beeswax-soaked rags draped over churn rims held back the faint tang of insects and dust. Families often owned multiple churns, one for cream that had been cultured, allowed to sour slightly and develop flavor, and another for sweet cream churned fresh. Cultured churners prized the tangy complexity their process yielded, but sweet cream churners enjoyed the faster rhythm of fresh dairy. In larger households or small farms, churns belonged almost to a communal space, a back porch, a summer kitchen, or a lean-to off the main house. There, children might wait their turn to help, mimicking adult strokes, their bare feet damp on the summer morning dew. In winter, churns moved indoors beside roaring hearths. The warmth sped churning, preventing cream from chilling too much and slowing the process. These wooden churns, simple machines by design, embodied centuries of refinement. Their shapes varied regionally, but their purpose remained sacred: to transform liquid cream into solid butter and separated buttermilk. As we prepare to plunge the paddle for the first time, let us pause to appreciate these vessels of tradition, each mark and groove a testimony to countless mornings past. The churning ritual. The churning itself was both labor and lullaby, a hypnotic dance of muscle and time. Before beginning, the churner ladled cream into the barrel, filling it no more than 2/3 full to allow space for foam and movement. A skim of warm water sometimes topped up the vessel, maintaining the cream's temperature and aiding agitation. Hands wrapped around the dasher handle, the churner began a measured motion. Plunge, pull, turn. Each descent broke cream's surface tension. Each ascent allowed air and buttermilk to rise and swirl. A steady rhythm set in, a pulse akin to a heartbeat, drawing anyone within earshot into its calm embrace. At first, the sound was a gentle swish, punctuated by soft thuds. After several minutes, sometimes 20, sometimes 30, the pace quickened and the swirl grew thicker. Cream stuttered around the paddle slats, and the swish deepened to a churner's growl. Splashes of pale liquid clung to barrel walls, catching light. A hush often fell over the kitchen. Even children paused mid-task to listen. In some homes, older siblings took shifts, one at the churn, another at the hearth, another fetching water to rinse the paddle between turns. The process invited conversation, but seldom frantic chatter. Voices dropped to match the churn's meditative cadence. Then came the telltale shift. The mass inside detached from the barrel walls, clumped into pebble-sized lumps. Known as butter grains, they rattled against wood with hollow clacks. The churner increased vigor, coaxing grains to coalesce into a single mass. Soon, the white liquid surrounding it became translucent buttermilk. The moment of separation felt miraculous. A final lurch of the paddle, and all else stilled. The churner paused, breath visible in cool air, and lifted the dasher. In its grooves nestled the buttery mass, heavy, cool, and damp with gleaming buttermilk. This was the heart of the ritual, where humble cream birthed gold, from butter to clarified fat. Once the solid butter emerged, separating it from buttermilk became essential. Buttermilk, once prized for baking and sipping, drained away or was skimmed off for later use. The butter itself, pale and pliable, required washing. In a shallow bowl or sink, carved into stone, a stream of cool water rinsed away residual buttermilk. Fingers pressed and folded the butter under water's flow until no more milky cloud appeared. Fresh butter, rich and faintly sweet, now awaited shaping. Wooden molds, flour carved or plain blocks, pressed the butter into decorative shapes for storage or gifting. Some households wrapped butter in parchment leaves or cloths dipped in butterfat to seal out air. Others salted their butter lightly. A pinch between folds added flavor and prolonged shelf life. But often, butter served not only as table spread, but as the raw material for clarified butter. In a heavy copper pan over low heat, buyers watched white foam rise to the surface. Gently skimming foam away, they coaxed the clear golden liquid below. This clarified butter, known as ghee in other traditions, stored longer without refrigeration, resisting spoilage. Clarified butter's refractive sheen, a sunlit amber, captured the hearth's glow. In some regions, colored butter with annatto seeds turned deep yellow or golden orange, signaling richness at markets and fairs. Merchants displayed barrels of this colored fat, drawing attention with vibrant hues that contrasted muted wood stalls. Families on remote homesteads might strain clarified butter through cheesecloth into crocks, then seal the tops with a layer of wax or cloth soaked in butterfat. These jars, stacked in cool cellars or buried in earth pits, served as the household's candle supply as well. A simple wick placed in the clarified fat burned long and clear, filling rooms with soft, flickering light. Thus, butter's journey extended far beyond breakfast. From the churn's wooden heart, it transformed, clarified, and preserved, becoming both nourishment and illumination for families who depended on every drop. While milk fat yielded butter, the wealth of the homestead's pig became evident only after butchering season. Lard, rendered from pork fat, formed the backbone of 19th century cooking and lighting. On Butcher Day, families gathered around a wooden block to divide fresh lard, leaf fat trimmed from kidneys and back. Rendered slowly, lard required patience akin to churning. In a large iron kettle set over coals or directly on a wood fire, the fat chopped into small cubes melted into bubbling pools. As heat coaxed liquid gold from solid bits, the air filled with a faint sweet aroma. Crisp cracklings, skins and bits, rose to the surface, crackling and popping like tiny fire sparks. A long-handled skimmer scooped off these cracklings, depositing them into a wooden bowl for later use. The fat continued to bubble, its surface shimmering. Low, controlled flame prevented scorching. Occasional wooden spoons stirred gently, ensuring even heat. Over hours, the kettle's content clarified. Pure white melted lard beneath a surface of pale water and foam. By late afternoon, the fire died back, and the family prepared crocks for straining. Straining lard into crocks demanded speed to prevent solidification in the kettle. cheesecloth or fine linen draped over a funnel captured impurities. The clear, silky liquid gushed through, pooling golden beneath. Crops of lard, sometimes tinted with bay leaves or rosemary sprigs, rested in cool corners. Within days, a hard white crust formed atop each crock, a seal preserving freshness. Rendered lard found its way into every corner of the household. In the kitchen, it fried donuts and vegetables, lent flakiness to pastry crusts, and greased iron skillets to prevent sticking. In the workshop, it conditioned leather and preserved tools from rust. In the parlor, tallow-blended candles gained a steadier burn when mixed with lard. To work with lard was to embrace thrift. Every scrap of fat, trimming, crackling, even membranes found purpose. Nothing went to waste. Rendering lard, like churning butter, reminded families of life cycles: growth, harvest, sacrifice, and renewal in nourishment, storing and seasoning. With butter and lard rendered, storage became the next critical step. Without modern canning or refrigeration, families relied on root cellars, cool pantries, and earthen crocks buried in the ground. These subterranean vaults, constructed of stone or brick, maintained near constant temperatures and humidity, ideal for preserving fats. Butter molds and lard crocks lined wooden shelves or sunken pits. Straw or oat chaff insulated jars from temperature swings. Some households layered fats with sprigs of herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, to impart subtle aromatics and deter insects. Others pressed bay leaves atop butter rounds, adding flavor and a natural insect repellent. For families near salt works, salted butter and salt-preserved lard became prized staples. Coarse sea salt rubbed into butter saturations created barriers against bacterial growth. In lard crocks, a thick crust of salt sealed the surface. These salted fats traded hands in local markets, valued for extended shelf life and culinary versatility. Seasoning also took cultural forms. In some Appalachian homesteads, rendered lard infused with wild mint or hickory smoke found its way into family recipes for biscuits, a regional signature. Coastal communities added seaweed to crocks, imparting mineral notes. Inland dairy regions colored butter with annatto seeds, creating bright orange blocks valued by merchants and cooks alike. In homes where cellar space was scarce, families turned to refrigeration alternatives. Springs or cold streams channeled water around tightly sealed crocks set in troughs. Ice collected in winter, packed in straw, lined specially dug pits beside fats, chilling them through warmer months. These primitive refrigerators required labor, but preserved fats for baking and cooking year-round. The act of storing fats became a quiet ritual in itself. Wiping crocks clean, labeling them with dates and local chalk, or carving initials into lids, whisper soft closing of cellar doors. These small gestures acknowledge the value of each jar, ensuring that families, even in lean seasons, had the nourishing means to bake, cook, and light their homes. Community and culture. Beyond the walls of a single farmhouse, the arts of churning and rendering united communities. Butcher fairs, harvest festivals, and dairy cooperatives formed around the shared need to process fats. In spring, cows freshened and pigs came to market. By autumn, families gathered for fat weeks to render lard before winters freeze. These communal events blended necessity with celebration. Imagine a village green at midday. Wooden tables heaped with churns stand ready. Neighbors bring cream in pails. Children dart between legs, carrying butter pats on wooden trays. Elders convene in clusters, sharing tips. Churn at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Add a pinch of salt halfway through. Or skim slow for creamier yield. Recipes and anecdotes pass from mouth to ear. An oral tapestry interwoven with local dialects and humor. At the smokehouse, communal lard pots bubble over open fire pits. Flames flicker across faces, cracklings sizzle in large pans, and the air smells of hearth and hearth, wood smoke, pork fat, and anticipation. Women ladle lard into crocks. Men stir heavy kettles. Children taste warm cracklings, their laughter echoing under barn eaves. Dairy cooperatives emerged in the mid-19th century, especially in growing towns. Farmers formed associations, pooling milk deliveries to shared creameries. There, large steam-powered churns turned out uniform butter, stamped with cooperative seals, symbols of trust and quality. Smallholders learned new techniques, exchanged innovations, and fostered regional pride in creamery butter. Fairs became stages for competition, ribbons awarded for best cultured butter or smoothest lard. Judges held spoons aloft to judge texture. Committees tasted samples, then conferred behind curtains of hay bales. Winning butters gained premium prices at market stalls. Winning lards adorned festival tables through winter. These communal rhythms shaped more than diets. They knitted social fabric. Potlucks featured rich butter cakes. Winter gatherings glowed by lard lamps. Letters home from immigrants often noted how homesickness eased when reminded of old world butchering days, or the scent of freshly churned butter. In urban backyards, even small plots hosted churns on rooftops or courtyard kitchens. Immigrant communities, Scandinavian, German, French, brought unique twists. Cultured butter churned in stone crocks, flavored with dill. Schmaltz rendered with onions and apples. Butter shaped into decorative rosettes for church bazaars. By sharing fats, families shared stories. A grandmother's memory of churning by lamplit windows. A husband's first taste of smoked lard at his in-laws. A child's delight at claps of butter formed in a hollowed gourd. These were not just culinary arts, but expressions of identity and belonging. Even today, revival groups and living history museums reenact fat-making rituals. Visitors sway churns, scoop lard, and taste buttermilk, bridging centuries through the simple, tactile language of fat and fire. In that continuity, we see the enduring power of common household skills to connect hearts, hands, and histories. Our journey into the world of early 19th century fats draws to a close. We began in misty barns and humble kitchens, gathered cream by hand, and pressed it through wooden churns. We listened to the churn's steady heartbeat, watched butter grains coalesce, and admired the liquid gold of clarified butter in copper pans. We followed pork fat from butcher block to bubbling kettles, tasting cracklings and straining lard into crocks that would light homes and enrich tables. In every step, milking at dawn, churning by hearth, rendering in communal smokehouses, we witnessed the quiet mastery of hands attuned to natural rhythms. These were not merely chores, but rituals that wove families and villages into tight-knit communities. Each paddle plunge, each crackle of fat, each sealed crock spoke of thrift, care, and continuity across generations. Today, as we swipe screens for instant recipes and flick on bright electric lights, we might forget the deep satisfaction of crafting our own butter or lard. Yet these skills linger in our imaginations, calling us to slow down, to appreciate the alchemy in simple ingredients, and to honor the hands that came before us. If this meditative exploration warmed you as fresh butter warms bread, consider carrying this tradition forward. A small batch of homemade butter, a weekend rendering of lard, even a note of gratitude for those who preserve traditional crafts. Each one keeps history alive in kitchens and living rooms alike. Thank you for joining this rhythmic tapestry of churn and kettle, of pasture and hearth. May your days be salted with appreciation, flavored by curiosity, and illuminated by the humble glow of ancestral wisdom.